going on here? There we go. All right, let's see. I think we got all our bells and whistles. Let's see what happens. All right, blah, blah, blah. Aha, I think I found my culprit.
Aha.
I think I found
Eureka.
my culprit. This is the other computer I opened.
Who done it? It was the other computer.
It was the other computer. Who would have known? And it was in the same room too. It wasn't even in the
It's always the other computer.
Yeah, with the candlestick in the conservatory.
Yeah. And I would have got away with it too. It hadn't
Just
been for
never.
this damn vMix.
Alrighty. Let's see. Looks like everything is actually going out. Yeah. All right. Let me check your fanciness too. See what's going on.
How am I doing?
Yeah, you're coming
How
in
am I
pretty
coming
solid
in?
now. Always, kind of messes things up sometimes when you start that other computer. But that's all right.
Other
Sometimes
computers.
we make mistakes in life, Will. We have to learn from them and move on.
We have to include the other computer and move
There we
forward
Yes.
in one way or the other. Yeah.
Yes. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, bum. All right.
I have to say, I've really fallen in love with our out-of-the-box generic, music that
Sure.
we found.
It's good stuff.
It is good. It's catchy.
It's only going to last for another second or so, though, and then we're going to slowly fade it down because we are live. We're having fun. It is Tuesday. It is the end of the month. It's the 31st of August, which means we're rolling into September. That blows me away. My name's Ryan. I got to find our little name button here. That way I know I'm Ryan and you know that you're Will. And
Thanks for sorting that out.
yeah, not a problem.
Yeah.
Not a problem. It is, it's the end of the month, sir.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't believe we're this far into 2020, man. That's so wild.
Yeah. And it will continue to keep on just moving forward constantly. I'm going to try and find this so I can get this set up for the next shot in our show. I think we're going to continue on. Hopefully we're going to continue on because this is what I have set up is our conversation from last week talking about this Inc. article about how to immediately change your life for the better. How's that sound to you?
Well, as long as it's immediately, I'm in.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
All right,
if it takes time and consistency and diligence and
right.
concentrated attention over periods of time, not
Forget
for
about
that.
Okay. All right.
It's 2021. We've moved past these things.
Well, it's like everything else in life is just boom, 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 going faster, going faster, going faster. So, of course, we want immediate change. I mean, why? Come on, folks.
Yes, in America and in the Western world, we've grown accustomed to a certain style of life.
Right.
I don't know if it's fully adopted yet, but at some point, not too far away, maybe even right now, I don't even know, I could order something and have a drone deliver it in an hour or two from now. And, as that kind of service becomes more the norm, we kind of expect our brains to operate the same way.
Right.
And, they actually do functionally, but getting them to that point doesn't really operate that way usually.
Yeah. Although you did mention last week that when change happens, it is immediate.
When we change our minds, it is
when you make change. Yeah.
Instantaneous. Yeah. And when it happens, right?
Right.
When we reframe an experience, when we change a belief, when we have a new reference for our identity that changes who we thought we were in this universe and how the world works, that happens instantaneously. Queuing that up to happen congruently can take some time.
Right.
It just depends. Or it can happen really quickly. People with near-death experiences report that that's probably the easiest example of pointing to instantaneous, massive, lasting change would be an experience like that.
Yeah.
Hard way to go. Wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, that could be a tough lesson. Could be a tough lesson. Yeah.
But it does point to what we're talking about.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting in the sense that do you take years of misery without being able to address the problem, where you haven't quite hit rock bottom or whatever that threshold is? Because everything's about thresholds in the mind. Once you hit a threshold, that's when that immediate change happens. And that's why near-death experiences are so powerful, is because it kind of goes not just past the threshold, but typically it takes it way past the threshold. So it really has an impact in the psyche. But the interesting concept of, maybe this is a question we could pose to the public, leave your comments below, is would you rather go through life and however many years it takes for you to get the change, become the person that you want? Or would you go through a near-death experience with that immediate change on the back end? It's almost like which one would you prefer? This could be like some evil movie, Trick or Treat, Hey, I got 2 cards in my hand. I'm going to shuffle them, hide them behind my back, pick a hand.
Yikes.
And if it's a trick, you may not like it. And if it's a treat, you'll like the results.
Yeah, interesting game. I know which one I would choose, but there's almost 8 billion people in the world. I'll leave them to make their choices for themselves, because that's mainly what we're up to here.
Sure. Yep.
But I would say the diligence it takes and the path it takes to create what you want, the change that you want in yourself and maybe in the world as a result, the who you become on the path to getting what you want is almost more valuable than getting what you want. So I fall more in that camp than.
So kind of like the life lessons of the growth and the learning type of deal.
Yeah. Well, it's that phrase from the course we went through. It's not the goal, it's what the goal does. Or in storytelling, I think, in like Hollywood narrative and screenplay, kind of knowledge, they call it the hero's 2 journeys, right? The hero goes on a journey in the real world externally, and they do these things and all this stuff happens, and they go on another hero's journey internally, and they grow into the person that they're becoming.
Right.
And both things always happen.
Right.
So I'm much more in that camp, although I guess you'd have their own version of that with a near-death experience. And it reminds me, we don't really do this anymore, but in a lot of cultures, a lot of kind of indigenous cultures especially, but a lot of different cultures all around the world throughout time, they would have like initiation rite rituals for boys to become men. And that is a bit of what we're talking here. A lot of them actually mimic death, because in a way the idea is like an ego death of, you're not a child anymore. That part of you has died, so to speak. You are now being reborn as a man. You're entering manhood. And instead of saying it, you experience it viscerally. And that's very different.
Well, and I think part of those traditions, a lot of time, there is a sense of danger that's involved in it. And it may not be physical danger, but there could be emotional danger. Like, oh, if I go do this, I remember in the 6th grade when I was going to school up in Reading, we all the 6th graders always had summer camps. So you'd spend 5 days or whatever it was out at summer camp out in the wilderness. And one of the things that we had to do was we went at night, and I feel like there was a moon out. I don't think we had flashlights or anything, but there was a section of this fire road that we're on, and all the kids had to go one by one. So we're all grouped up here, but we had to walk a quarter mile. I have no idea what the distance was, but you had to walk by yourself at night. And again, I'm pretty sure we didn't have flashlights, but there was enough moonlight that you could like see. And so there's that kind of, there's got to be some, I don't know if danger is the right word, but you have to there's got to be like a fear or something to overcome as part of this. And if you're not forced into it, which we really don't do in Western society, we don't really have any of these events, these celebrations, these whatever, where it's like, hey, you've got to push through something in order to get to the next level.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we pay a huge price for it, but that's probably a massive topic for another day.
It is.
We as a society pay a big price for it, and everyone personally pays a big price for it, because we kind of seek, the brain is meant to conserve calories and prevent danger. So it always is going to trend towards what's the easiest path, which I'm not going to make that wrong at all. Always, if it's the easiest path to what you want, the path of least resistance gets poo-pooed on way too much. That's a good thing. No one gets mad at electricity for taking the path of least resistance. We only get mad at humans for doing it. It's kind of a way of nature works. But when we seek comfort, which is understandable and it's logical, but when we only have that experience, we don't fully get to understand like us, and you say like our bodies and our minds as a vehicle. Like, what can we really do? Right. The line from Fight Club, how much can you really know about yourself if you've never been in a fight? Is the idea we're talking about here. I'm not saying go out and get in a fight. Sure. I'm not saying that's necessary, but it's like, we're meant to be tested, and we're meant to overcome, and we're meant to answer the call, and we all can do that. Right. A lot of people have the experience of not being able to do that and what they call failing, but that's just, not taking a longer term view of things. If you fail in the short run, just know that the game's still going, the game being your life, which statistically speaking is going to be a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's a lot of confidence that comes out of being tested and succeeding, or not succeeding in the ways that you want, but learning something from it. Yeah. So it's kind of like, I don't know, I'm going to butcher the saying a little bit, but they go, you don't know a real captain until you're in bad weather, essentially. Anybody can captain a boat with some common sense in fair weather. It's when the shit hits the fan and the storms are blowing, that's when you know who the real captains are, because there's actually some adversity there that they're having to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm thinking maybe we jump into last week, quick overcap and follow up. So the article is basically, it was Inc. magazine. If you didn't catch last week's and you want to follow up, we talked about addressing the choices you've made in your past and changing the choices. So if what you've been doing isn't working, maybe do something different. Number two, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Maybe. Number two, speak up with honesty. Stop holding back what you think. So that's kind of like really digging in and really being like that brutally honest, like that back compartment that you tuck all the things away that you're not allowed to say about yourself or about others. If you kind of open that door a little bit and are really honest with yourself.
We talked a bit about how not being able to speak up honestly and being assertive, that's, an offshoot compensation for trauma, usually early in life. Also talking about perfectionism. Perfectionism is also usually another common offshoot of trauma, compensating for things by being a perfectionist or by walking on eggshells and not speaking up in life. With the asterisk caveat that I just have to add, that doesn't mean go through life, speak your truth and just 100% of the time and, just make everyone upset or mad or look for that sort of thing. That's not what we're saying. Right. And some people and a lot of battles aren't worth having. So knowing what the difference is between those two things, having the capacity to speak your truth and knowing when it's not worth fighting with someone about it, those are both very important life skills.
Right. Yep. Requires some calibration. So that's where it's kind
Mhm.
of, you need to be okay with the fact that sometimes you might lean a little bit one way, or maybe it's you didn't speak your truth enough, or you weren't honest enough in the ways that you felt you needed to be because of whatever. And then on the flip side, it's like, oh, maybe that was too much. And
Yeah.
so, just being able to calibrate, and that's where there isn't failure, there's only learning.
Yeah, and behavioral flexibility. You have the
Yeah.
capacity to do both. There's no universal truth, like you have to be one way all the
Right.
time. I
Right.
forget I'll butcher this saying now. It comes from the art of war, where it's like the easiest, the best way to win a war is not to fight it. So
Right.
figure out how to do this. Some people are impossible, and knowing who they are and not fighting those battles will save you precious time and energy.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of, I learned that lesson talking to drunk people. It's like, there's no point in trying to have a rational conversation with somebody who's
Yeah.
drunk. Just
That's
pointless.
that is a great that's a great example. And some
Yeah.
people's minds are fixed up in a way that they kind of perceive the whole world from a warped drunk perspective.
Right.
So
Yeah.
spotting those people, that's important.
That's important. And then kind of this rolls right into what we were talking about, is kind of acknowledging your losses and move on to success. So sometimes it's kind of like you're saying, pick your battles. And then I think the
Yeah.
other thing is also accept what is. And even if it's negative or perceived negative in your system, but where's your focus? How do you want to move forward? I was just talking to a friend of mine who's going through, a friend of hers is going through a divorce, and her friend got a cease and desist order from the ex-husband, soon to be ex-husband's attorney, because of a post they posted on social media. And
Wow. Okay.
yeah, and it was kind of like, and then so my friend's telling me about this. She's all, "Oh, honey, you cannot post that." And of course, her friend's got to defend her, but other people need to know. I'm trying to protect them. She's like, "No, no, 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 no." It's like, choose your battle. This is, and don't need to do it publicly. If you need to help your girlfriends out here, do it privately, but not publicly. So her focus is just really stuck in the hurt and the pain of everything, versus, okay, what is it that I want? Hopefully it's, I want to be happy. I want to be able to move on past this relationship. I want to maybe have another, find somebody else to be in, whatever that is. She's obviously stuck on the negative right now. And so how can you shift perspective? And if you notice that you're thinking about the negative things, but typically we don't want negative things in our life. So how can we shift that and start focusing on the positives?
It's a great point. And you can kind of get an emotional barometer of this inside yourself, because hatred and anger will point to the fact that you're not over something. You're not over a relationship where you still have a lot of anger about that person. That anger keeps you very profoundly and deeply connected to that person.
All right.
Indifference, it would be the true sign of things moving forward.
Yeah. I hit the wrong button on the old computer here. I was trying to highlight here. So number 5, remember that it's not how many mistakes you've made, but what you've learned from them that defines you. I think we kind of touched on that a little bit, as far as there are no failures. There's only learning.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a profound statement. If you can look at we're all going to fall short. We're all going to fall down. We're all going to miss our targets in life at some point, maybe more than others. We're all going to fail in a little way or profoundly about some things in our life. We're designed to do that. It seems to be built into the system of what we call being human, so that we learn things. The only problem is you're not guaranteed to learn anything. You have to consciously, you go through life, you bump into something, you call that a failure. what can you take away from that, and
Right.
what can you do differently next time moving forward?
Right. And I always appreciated the analogy of a toddler learning to walk. And
Yeah.
how many times did they struggle? How many times did they fall? Um, but they don't stop. It's
Yeah.
just they don't have all these filters. Oh, I can't walk. Oh, I'm so stupid. Oh, I'm so weak. Oh, my diaper is too big. It's getting in my way. Or, they don't have all these filters playing in their mind about all the reasons
Yeah.
why they're a failure. They're just like, okay, that didn't work. Let me,
Yeah.
I'm going to try that. And obviously, consciously, they're not doing it, but
Hmm.
unconsciously, the mind is going, hey, we need to, like, get these muscles and these nerve endings and, this whole balance thing figured out. And
Yeah.
sure enough, they do it. And then they start running and falling. And, half the time they fall and they're not really hurt, but they start to learn to look around. And once they see mom or dad or somebody, it's like, "Wah!" But,
Yeah.
they were
Yeah,
fine.
and a lot of times, sometimes they learn how to react, cueing off the parents too.
Right.
But yeah, I think learning how to walk is one of the deepest and best, and one of my favorite metaphors ever, because almost every human on the planet has gone through that experience. Probably
Right.
none of us remember it, but nonetheless, it's in our psyches. We were all compelled from beyond in a way that probably haunted us to get off the ground and walk on two legs. And we didn't quit. Not a single person quit unless they lacked the physical capacity to do it or something like that.
Right.
So
Yeah.
remember that you learn to walk. You can pretty much do anything else, because that was a really hard time for you.
Yeah. And it took, it didn't happen overnight. It wasn't immediate.
Nope.
Definitely took a little effort in
Yeah.
work. Yeah. Number 6, kind of touched on this a little earlier. Forgive those who have hurt you,
Yeah.
but change who you surround yourself with.
Very true.
I don't know. Do you know the statistic as far as you're like, what is it? You're the median of your 20 closest friends or 10 closest friends, whatever that is.
Yeah, it's kind of that old personal development trope. I don't mean to downplay it. I actually think it's profoundly true. I've heard it so much that it's like the stuff that I feel like you can write on Hallmark cards. I kind of, all right, yeah. But like this one is profoundly accurate. Like, yeah, it was like Zig Ziglar or someone back in the day said you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Like, that's the gist of it, essentially.
Right.
And this all happens unconsciously and automatically. This is not a conscious thing. This is the mirroring neurons inside of our brains picking up on subtle cues and information and data that we're not even aware of, and it's influencing us profoundly at a deep level. This is left over from when we were tribal, when we lived in tribes, and our capability almost in the beginning, like when humans were coming on the map, our ability to learn quickly gave us this huge strategic advantage over everyone else, especially learning how to hunt. And we were relatively weak and frail, compared to like all the other predators out on the savannah. But the fact that someone could throw a spear or like use a tool, and you could watch them do it, and then you could repeat that instantly, that's unique to humans.
Right.
And this is what's going on here. We learn from the people around us. We are profoundly influenced by the people we spend the most time with in ways that we can't control. So the idea is you need to have people around you who you want to be influenced by, i.e.
Right.
they're positive, they're ahead of where you are, or they're good for you. They're not dragging you down, because they will drag you down whether you want it or not, whether you fight against it or not.
Right. Yeah.
And this gets really hard and sad when it's family who's dragging you down, or it's old friends, or it's like your work environment that's, very invalidating or toxic or whatever it is. It's like this can get very complicated quickly depending on the life situation.
Right.
But it's a really important one to keep in mind.
Yeah, and a lot of this, what we're talking about, is just really bringing awareness. Having an awareness of what's going on around you if you're not having the results, the lifestyle, the happiness, whatever it is in your life. When so many people are looking for immediate change, but they're just looking to make change without reflecting inward as to what's going on. And so, kind of what you're talking about, Will, I think of belonging and how powerful belonging is. Our teacher, Carl Buchheit, says that without belonging, without this intense sense of belonging, there would be no war. The fact
Makes sense. Yeah.
The fact that I was born and raised in the United States, and there's the ideology's been pushed. We're taught in school. We go the 4th of July. We go the parades. There's all the propaganda that goes about what it is to be an American. And if you belong as America, well, of course, I would want to defend my country, my nation, my people, the people that I belong to, the people that I relate to, from the communist as an example, or whoever the current threat might be. So that belonging, people will die for it. That's how important belonging is. And it will keep you in places that maybe you don't want to be. So kind of noticing that, if you're the sum of your 5 closest friends, and you're kind of like, but I don't like the lifestyle that my friends are living, or the fact that they always complain about things, realize that, okay, I got to look at myself then and go, well, why do I resonate with these people? And why do I feel I belong with them, even though I want this over here?
That's a great way to approach it. I like it.
Yeah.
And this one's a tricky one. It's so important that it's like, really put some attention on this one.
Yeah.
And it might be one of the most painful and difficult experiences you go through too.
All right.
Just depending.
Yeah. And this is why change itself, when it happens, is immediate, but for change to happen, it typically isn't immediate. It takes time. There's just so much stuff going on. Especially like you were saying, if it comes to family, if you've got to turn against family because you're like, no, this is not who I want to be. I want to be this person instead. It's almost like emotional suicide. You're almost annihilating the person that you once were or you have to annihilate that person in order to move forward and reinvent yourself. And there's so many people that have gone through this. And Elton John, just watching some of the different autobiographies about like an Elton John or Freddie Mercury, and they had to become different people in order to express themselves.
Yeah, interesting. Did they change their names? Do you know? I haven't seen either of the movies you're talking about, although I hear they're both really good. I just you don't have to remember. I just know.
Yeah.
I'm always interested by that phenomenon. So many rock stars and actors and actresses change their names. Right. And I always think it seems like it's the easiest way to kind of reinvent yourself without truly maybe reinventing yourself. You just become a different person.
Right. And you get to become that person that you wanted to be, ideally, right? It's that alter ego, if you will. It's that version, that truer version of you that's lived inside. So yeah, I have to kill off Mary Jane, and I got to become whoever the superstar name is.
Yeah.
Bad analogy. I was actually, go ahead.
Oh, I didn't have anything to say.
Okay, I was gonna say, I was watching a show on a basketball player, Luke somebody. He was the first, and he might be the only basketball player from Australia. He was like 7'2", and he played with the Bulls and won 3 championships with the Bulls when Michael Jordan came back. So Michael Jordan played, then he left, and he came back, and they won, I believe it was 3 championships. And this guy was just kind of this docile giant who really wasn't into basketball, but was kind of thrust into it because of his size and those types of things. And once he got into it, he actually enjoyed it once he got into it. But he goes, he really had a hard time with MJ because MJ was all about winning. It's you give all, you attack, you conquer. It's like you just, and this guy's kind of like, hey, I just want to enjoy the game, throw up some ball. He's just more laid back. And so he had to kind of reinvent himself in order to belong on that team. Because a part of him wanted to live up to the expectations of MJ. And there was his own self-doubts as whether or not he was really a good player and those types of things. And he struggled with that, but once he got out of it, he was that really wasn't the person I wanted to be. He just didn't have that aggressive nature inside of him. He's more of that gentle giant, if you will. And I'm generalizing here hugely. And he's like, that's kind of the person that I'd much rather be. Well, and there were things that he learned from that he really enjoyed, but there was also a lot of it that he ended up learning that he didn't enjoy. So he had to kind of shift back after in the NBA.
Yeah, makes sense. And I don't know who you're talking about. I'm surprised he didn't come up in that. I watched that docuseries, The Last Dance, about Michael Jordan and the Bulls in their last season. And I'm actually not. I don't know much about basketball. I was kind of.
I'll find it and send it to you.
Yeah, watching this, I was like, wow, I really, really missed out on a unique time in my life. I should have watched the Bulls back in the day. Like, I really see how I missed out, because the docuseries is incredibly well done. It's very interesting. And, it seems like that was kind of a unique time in the world, but it talks a lot about how, to speak to what we're talking about now, like, people talked about how they were influenced and made better by Michael Jordan. Yeah. For better or worse. It sounded like he was a very intense guy and prided himself on being a leader, and getting in his style of leadership was getting on your ass and being in your face and like calling stuff out. And he was an intense dude, but they said it wasn't personal. It was just because he wanted to, the goal was to win. And I'm sure he has some intense stuff going on in his head where I don't think he has the capacity to lose very well. So he's kind of fighting for his life. It looks like, but it made him probably the best player of all time. So the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away, I guess.
And it's interesting
but he influenced the rest of the team too in what we're talking about here.
Yeah. But it's interesting how you can take a negative experience, and how many people have done this. A lot of these great people that are, have had tremendous success is because of something so painful in their life that is just really driving them.
Yeah, we're seeing that a lot going on, in the Olympics that just happened with a lot of athletes. I forget if it was last week or before, Michael Phelps, the most decorated Olympian of all time. He's now the biggest sponsor or talking head celebrity face of I think, what is it, Talkspace, that on-demand therapy company. It's like a lot of profoundly successful people are driven by pain. And I still think about one of them, like, I'm always curious if they would trade like better feelings on the inside and a different mind, or a more revised mind in the way they want, for all the worldly success and ribbons and trophies they have. Tough question. I'm sure it'd be different for everyone too. I'd love to ask all of them.
Yeah. Steve Jobs is on that list for me. I'd be curious to know.
Yeah. For sure.
Speaking of list, number 7, nurture your mind with great thoughts, for you will never go higher than you think. Maybe a little belief and identity in here.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think we're talking about. Yeah, our beliefs, the rules about how the universe operates, and our identity, who we are and what we believe we are in relation to those rules about how the universe and the world works.
All right.
You can't get out. For me, I always kind of think of it as like a crystal bubble around us. You can't, and you can expand it or contract it, but you can't go past that experience. And I think when some people read that, they'll just read that as, oh, you just have to think positively, or you have to believe that a positive thing can happen.
Right.
And if somewhere in the deeper recesses of your mind, you have beliefs that limit you from that, or an identity of yourself that, you will never have it better than your parents, or good things aren't for you, you can think positively all you want.
Right.
But you're just going to be you're just creating a war within yourself. Yeah.
Right.
You're creating friction instead of alignment.
Right. I think the one thing I will say is that it is, I think there is some benefit to that. It really depends. It's kind of like you take it as a math sequence. If you start at 0 and when life gets good, you add value, if you will. Life is good, I can accomplish things, I feel confident, dun, dun, dun. And then, like you said earlier, sometimes it giveth, sometimes it taketh, and things will happen in life, and we can kind of get down here, and there's major events that shape our lives at a very early age. And those items that shape you, if it affects your confidence, it affects your place in the world, your ability to reach for what you want. Again, if you kind of started out here, we'll just say this is neutral, and you end up down here, if you're always striving for this, if this is kind of what you're capable of, because this is the ceiling of what you're capable of, I think having some thoughts of, wow, life could be different, kind of helps push this up. However, if there's an identity belief that if you get past this, you won't be who you are anymore, and we can't have that. You got to know who you are. That's kind of that ceiling that we bump into. And so you can have like incremental like shifts and movement in that. But like how much does it really help? I don't know. I think from a hope place, it can create more hope. Okay, yes, because hope is what keeps us moving forward, in my opinion. But really, and this, you've talked about this a lot. This is where speaking to somebody professionally, whoever it might be, is going to be to identify that, hey, there's a glass ceiling here that you don't see. It's a limiting belief. It's an identity structure that's keeping you from moving forward. And you got to have that outside resource typically, or sometimes a near-death experience is a great way to go, screw this, screw this. My identity just died. I literally almost died. I just killed off that identity, and we get to jump to here. But yeah, just thinking happy thoughts and those types of things, while I think it is helpful, is it necessarily the solution? And kind of with the vein of this topic, immediate change. That's really the slow and the slow, super slow way of doing it.
Just trying to see what they're saying about this specifically. If you load up on positivity and great thoughts, you can create positive and great things for yourself. If you want to change and change fast, start by changing how you think. Tricky
Just
one.
Change how you think.
Yeah,
that's all you got to do. Come on, folks.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly want to be in touch with where you want to be, and you want to visualize that, and you want to normalize that in your mind with positive thoughts. You want to decide where you're going,
right.
And you want to have a belief that you're capable of achieving that, quickly or over time, depending on the goal. But you don't want to be Pollyanna. That would be the problem with it, using positivity to trick yourself or to always seek good feelings, when actually bad feelings might be the course recorrection that gets you closer to your goal or what you want. It just kind of depends.
And if we take it like super far, then you end up with a spiritual disconnect. where, you know,
Yeah.
everything is just bliss, everything's happy. So it's, you know, it's kind of like I'm going to stick my
Oh
head up
yeah.
in the clouds. It's the opposite of the
Mhm.
ostrich sticking their head in the sand. I'm
Mhm.
going to stick my head up in the cloud where everything's fine and dandy, and, you know, all
Yeah.
is well, and we just kind of ignore what's going on, and yet we're still not achieving what it is that we want. We're just living in this alternate universe, this matrix of
Yeah.
bliss, if you will.
Or we're not handling our proper responsibilities. Yeah, the spiritual bypass maneuver. I think we're, you know, if you're a parent and all your kids are doing horribly in the world, and you just kind of stick your mind up in the clouds and say, you know, they have to walk their path and I have nothing to do with this, especially if
Right.
they're towards the younger ages as opposed to, you know, being in their 30s or something like that.
Right.
Then we just use things to bypass reality and bypass our own feelings.
Right. Yeah.
And
Kind of like,
everyone loses.
yeah, kind of like the typically it's the mom, the cliche mom who, my Johnny would never do that. No, no, no. My Johnny's an angel. Never.
Yeah.
And they're just, yeah, they've distorted and deleted reality in a way to make sure that their little Johnny is an angel, and they'll never see, you know, what's truly going on if they're not open to it. And that's
Yeah.
part of the belief and identity. So how many ways are everybody, you know, everybody in the world has limitations. Even the people that you think are the most successful and oh my gosh, they even have limitations, which is a good thing. Otherwise, I think our heads might explode without them. But when you put limitations on who you want to be, the authentic version of you, it's really going to be hard to have happiness in your life because you're not in alignment with yourself.
Yeah. And this is a tricky one because if you wall off that authenticity inside yourself or even the contact with that sort of experience of yourself, you can seal that off really effectively to the point where you can trick yourself that you haven't done that. And this is why outside help is so critically important.
Right.
You know, qualified outside help who knows what they're doing is where we kind of like, well, hold on, like, yeah, inside yourself you can explain why all these things are happening and why you're not getting what you want and why you keep getting what you don't want, but you just can't see what you can't see. And this is where an outside perspective becomes so important for all of us. And I really, for all almost 8 billion of us, need to sit with someone who cares about our well-being and knows how to help us. The world would be a much better place.
Yeah, for sure. And the most successful people, may it be in business and sports and life and relationships, work with coaches, consultants, you know, whatever name you want to attach to it. They work with people who help them become better. You know, part of going to college is, you know, if you're going to learn a trade, don't just try and figure it out on your own. You go to college and you go from A to B much faster, ideally, than trying to learn it on your own.
Yeah. And this is how it comes from sports originally, but it's like, this is how we progress. Like we talked about Michael Phelps earlier. Michael Phelps has a coach. He would not be the most decorated Olympian of all time if he didn't have a coach. His coach is not nearly as good of a swimmer as Michael Phelps is, but it's a different skill. He knows how to make this guy better. And we all need that, whether it's in our careers or in our personal lives or in our relationships. It just speeds things along.
Yeah. It's so important to have that outside perspective. And when people present it to you without the filters that you're seeing life through, it gives you an opportunity to see things more clearly and have those oh shit or or aha moments, however they land for you, and kind of like, oh, okay, So now I know what I need to work on. Because ultimately, if you know what to work on and you work on it and you work through the ecology, the pain that comes with working on things, the emotional pain that comes on working with things, you will succeed. And that takes time. May it be a day, may it be 7 days, may it be a month, a year, 2 years, 5 years. It all takes time. So, but you got to have awareness first of what's going on.
Yeah.
And I think one of the great ways of finding awareness is number 8. Find success at the edge of your comfort zone.
Yeah, and I think they're tied together. I don't really like think positive, although I'm not poo-pooing it. I really would rather say think clearly. And I think getting clear about where you are might feel really bad, but that's important, you know, or it might feel really good. And if that's the truth, then that's awesome too. But like thinking clearly is much more important than thinking positively. But having positive expectations for your life is very important too. Maybe that's how I would rephrase it.
Yeah, so it's thinking clearly about what it is that you want, not thinking clearly about all the things that you hate in your life.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although if that helps you move away from them, then that works too.
Sure. But ideally,
we're trying to help 8 billion people all at the same time. We're all very different here.
I'm only interested in helping those who want to be helped at this point.
Try and narrow it down a little bit. It's a way smaller percentage.
Just a little bit. You know, if we can bring it down to a couple billion, that would be awesome. Because the reality is there are some people out there that just are not in a position emotionally, mentally to make those shifts, or they're just, you know, not mentally stable potentially also, and really need some professional help in order to make shift and changes. And if you're one of those people, I don't recommend 9 Perfect Strangers, whatever. I forget what the show we were talking about that with Nicole Kidman. I cannot think of her wellness clinic.
I haven't seen it.
Would not recommend that type of facility.
Well, this is the problem. Those people who are kind of lost and don't have the sense that they can affect their own lives, or maybe they do, but they don't know how to do that. They get seduced by charismatic leaders and cult leaders and stuff like that. This is how these things happen. I mean, I think mental health and people kind of being clearly seeing their life clearly for whatever it is and having positive expectations for where they want to go. It's fundamental. This prevents fascism. This prevents like negative groupthink. This prevents like horrible atrocities from even coming about when people are more embodied inside of themselves. Like it has I get that a lot of great psychologists, we all, you know, Freud and Jung and all these people, they always start writing about politics eventually. And I get why, because the more I study psychology and dig into it, you know, going on almost 10 years now, like it extrapolates and gets wider, and it's like, you know, you start to see how like politics comes together and why the systems are the way they are and why groups operate the way they operate, and how can it be improved. And there's lots of ways to do that, but it starts with us each individually, which is where all these movements always come back to, unless someone's trying to convince you that they're the answer in your life. Watch out for those people. You're the answer in your life, and seeing it clearly for what it is, and being like, and having good people around you is a good place to start. And it prevents all these other huge things like from happening. It's a natural preventative thing to other horrible atrocities.
Because you have the strength and the confidence to stand up, speak up, do the things that you feel you need to do. And it's going off on a quick tangent here, hopefully we don't go totally down, is this concept of, we're just going to take care of you as a government. We will figure out what's right for you as a government. Scares the living shit out of me. because that is a great way to get into a dictatorship, because you weaken the confidence of the people. It's like they're talking about just giving free money to people now. We're going to start doing this universal payment or whatever it is, where the states, and I think California has played with this, where
universal income.
Universal income, right? It's like, and it's like, oh, okay, well, that sounds easy. I just get paid and I don't have to go to a crappy job anymore. Oh, sounds reasonable. And, then now I'm relying on the government for income. And, it's like, okay, well, you guys aren't really doing this correctly, so we're going to take care of it. And it's been my experience that the government doesn't always have the public's best interest in heart. And so that erosion of confidence, that, oh, well, you're going to give me money, I don't have to worry about how to figure out how to make money. It's like, because 5 years later, if you're not happy and you don't know how to make money, it could be a little bit harder for you to figure that out. Where, oh, well, I feel trapped now because I don't know what to do. I don't have the confidence. I don't have the understanding. I don't have the whatever. The government just keeps on feeding me the fish, so I don't know how to fish anymore. And you do that over a couple of generations, and so anyway, little bit of a
we'd have to dig way more into that. That's not my understanding of how universal income would work, but
But if you think about
the principle is, if you become dependent on someone or anything, you are disempowered.
Right. Yeah. So how can we take the power away from you so we can continue to take the power away from you, so we can continue to take the power away from you, so that you don't have any power? I mean, we've seen how that plays out in the difference between North Korea and South Korea. How much more successful is South Korea than North Korea? And which one has more power to the people? And I'm not saying that, South Korea is just like, oh my gosh, people go do whatever you want. There's all kinds of shit going on. But South Korea has more say, allows the people to be responsible, to manufacture, to figure out business, to figure out problems, to solve things and take care of things, versus we'll take care of it. So anyway.
Well, yeah. And I'm no expert about any of that, but South Korea is not ruled by a totalitarian dynasty, basically going on. Was it 3 generations now?
I don't know. But
yeah, I mean, being human's tricky, man. I fall in a little bit of a different camp. I think communal governance, honestly, is the most powerful force on the planet to affect good in people's lives. And how it does that, right? That's a big universal statement, very non-specific. The specifics of how it does that, of course, are up for debate.
Right.
But we all have to live with each other at the end of the day. And it's messy and complicated, and everyone has their own agendas, and it gets tricky. But just because it doesn't work very well doesn't mean that it can't work better. That's how I look at it. And it doesn't mean that it isn't the greatest potential force for good, for impacting everyone's life in a positive way. It's the only economic power that could generate the thing to keep things afloat in the pandemic, as an example. There's no private company that could have done what the government did to kind of affect things from going under economically, as one example.
Correct.
Yeah.
So there's a balance there at all points. I'm still, I look at China and I'm amazed at what they're able to accomplish, because they still kind of have that dictatorship. When they want to do something, they get it done. There is no bureaucracy. I'm sure there is to some level, but it's not like it is in the United States. While there may be lawsuits in China potentially, I don't think the government really cares. It's like, we're going to build this, and this is how it's going to work, and boom, we need it done. And the things that they can build in a day would take us a year to complete.
They are able to get things done.
Yeah.
It comes at a great cost
Yeah.
to a lots of people.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Democracy's really fucking messy.
It
Communal
is. It
governance.
is.
The example I always think of, because I've lived through it a lot, is how hard is it to get a group of good friends to agree on what restaurant to go eat at on a Saturday night? Have you ever done that and had it just be like the hardest, most annoying task ever? Now blow that up times 10 million. That's what governing a country is like, or something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
and we have parts inside of ourselves. We have this level of conflict inside of our psyches and ourselves too. So governing and ruling ourselves operates similarly.
Mm-hmm.
It's like an out picturing of what's inside most of us too.
Right. Yeah. Some great thoughts to ponder. Yeah, and I got to figure out what I'm going to have for lunch.
Yeah.
The good thing is I don't have to debate it with anybody because it's just me. I get to walk down the Oliver's.
Just inside yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Although the other day I had a great debate. The worst is when you're like, I don't know what I want to eat. And then nothing sounds good and yet you're hungry. And that's like the worst.
I think that's your blood sugar and the hormones confusing all your mental processes, I would guess, among other things. Yeah. But yeah, we've all had that. You're hungry, but you just can't figure it out. And when you try to, nothing actually sounds good or feels good.
Yeah.
That's a weird experience.
Yeah. It's the worst. Let's talk about conflict. Anything you want to say about living at the edge of your comfort zone? I don't even know if we talked about it.
Edge of your comfort zone. We just
jumped straight into a side.
We fell down a little wormhole, but the comfort zone stuff, it's like, it's one of those hallmark phrases again. It's like true and it's not true. I would say the idea is you have to get outside of your comfort zone, because if you're going to have something new, you've never experienced it, so it's going to feel uncomfortable in your mind. That's true. I don't think life has to be this uncomfortable slog either. That's kind of the extrapolation where it gets a bit wonky and not so useful. Mm-hmm. And this is where visualization and getting outside help and working with other people to normalize something that might trigger, a fight, flight, freeze response inside of you because it's new and different. It's not proven to be survivable, even though your conscious mind is like, this is great. This would be great. What's the problem? Part of me that tries to keep me alive, and the part of you, that critter brain saying, well, we just don't know. Mm-hmm. We just don't know. Like, prove to me that it's survivable. You're like, well, you can't, because we've never done it. So we haven't survived it yet. Right. So gotcha. And this is where visualizing things in our mind normalizes it, and breathing through that. The critter brain can bear anything it can breathe through. So the more you can have these positive experiences and your goals, richly visualized and also felt in your system, the more it becomes like, oh, we've survived this. This is just how life works. This is okay. Right. So you kind of get to the edge of your comfort zone, normalize it, and then grow to the next edge of your comfort zone. Yeah. And I think, I don't know if we've talked about breathing, but, I love the fact that you brought up breathing, because it's, I don't know if it's something that a lot of people pay attention to. And then plus what you were just saying, as far as the importance of breathing and to kind of reset and allow your system to know that you're alive is kind of huge. As far as a concept that you can actually just breathe through something. And when we're talking about breathing, we're talking about actually breathing into your belly. So not short, like not hyperventilation, but a nice deep breath into your stomach while you're dealing with whatever the emotional experience is, and then breathing out and then breathing in. Your system will reset. And is it something like 20 seconds? Like if you can survive it for 20 seconds, then it goes away
type of a deal, like most, I don't want to say anxiety or anything. I forget what it is, but you
I don't
can
know. I
only,
hadn't heard that.
okay, it's something to, I forget if it's anger specifically or something, but you can only hold an emotion for like so long. And so just
Yeah,
by
yeah.
breathing through it will help release
All
it
emotions
faster.
are meant to pass.
Yeah.
The good news and the bad news is there's literally no emotion that can last. They're not designed to.
Hmm.
And our bodies manufacture that experience. I'm glad you're talking about deep breaths. When you're feeling anxious or unsafe or uncomfortable, your body's naturally breathing shallowly. It goes into this experience and it manufactures it somatically to a certain degree, and you can actually like circumvent it and change your state by having these deep belly breaths and just noticing that difference. It won't take care of everything unless it
No.
does, but it's absolutely important to notice that like
Right.
there's a physiological component to anxiety, to discomfort, to fear, to being on the edge of your comfort zone
Yeah.
that you can affect profoundly.
Hmm. In a positive way. So,
Yeah.
which is nice. All right, shall we?
So you got that going for you.
Yeah, shall we head on down to number 9? I
Yeah.
think we're like an hour. How far into the show are we? I have no idea.
About an hour in. Yeah, we're an hour in.
An hour in.
Number 9, don't compare your own life with anyone else's.
Duh.
All right.
Why would you? It's not like we have Instagram and Facebook and all these other great social tools available to us where people tend to highlight the best things going on in their life and the best versions of them. I don't know about you, but I don't post any failures for the most part.
I don't really post much of anything, but yeah, if I do, it's not a failure usually. And when I see influencers do it, it's usually like more of this, that when they post their failures in their real life, it almost looks more like this kind of backhanded, complimentary, like positive thing that they're doing. It always kind of looks very strange to me.
Right.
But our lives are full of failures. Our lives are full of misdirections and hopefully course corrections. This is how we do. We're
right.
The big secret to life is that nobody knows what they're doing. That's like, and that's the ski. When we were kids, we're like, I can't wait till I'm an adult and I have this figured out and I know what I'm doing. And then you become your adult, like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And you just look at everyone who you project that idea on, like, oh, they know what they're doing. They haven't figured it out. They're like, just know that they have no idea what they're doing. They're figuring it out in real time.
Yep.
And this is what we're built to do.
Yeah, they're figuring it out in different ways also. I can't tell you how many business people I've talked to, and they're like, oh, I worked with this person who is an expert, but they didn't they did not know what they were doing, or they did it in such a way that worked really well for their behavioral style, but they're trying to help and show people how to do it, and it doesn't work for them.
That's a really great point. That brings you back to we're talking about Michael Phelps and his coach. It's like Michael Phelps is a way better swimmer than his coach is, but his coach has the skill set of, I know how to bring out the best in this person and make him a better swimmer. And they're completely different things.
Yep.
So having that behavioral flexibility is important. And I guess sometimes it's good to compare yourself to other people. If you're the second best Olympian swimmer in the world, you might want to compare yourself to the first and like see if that drives you to get over to goal. You just want to use it sparingly as a tactic, not as like an identity orientation to always be cueing off of other people. You want to be oriented inside yourself and say, what do I want and why, and know why you want it. Oh, I want it because all this advertising tells me I need a new purse or something. Okay, well, do you really want a new purse, or has it been put in your mind?
Right.
Oh, well, the iPhone's just true. That one, that
I
passes.
I hear the iPhone 13 might have a new chip in it that will talk to satellites. So if you're out of cell signal, you'll still be able to text and potentially talk. That would be a game changer.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know that.
For somebody who likes to go out in the wilderness and hiking, that would be huge to have satellite connection. But
well,
yeah,
here's the connection. As an Android man, is that enough to bring you over to the dark side? Is it going to turn you?
I mean, does your iPhone do that? Ooh.
Oh, that's pretty. That's pretty.
You know,
I'm more like if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of guy.
Yeah,
I've always been happy enough. Why would I change to Android? iPhone's always been fine.
That's why this phone's like almost 3 years old now, and the battery's finally starting to go. So I'm like, But yeah, I think the quick thing here with don't compare yourself to other people is that it's a really slippery slope, because there is, oh, well, I'm not good enough. Oh, look, you know, this person's got a better booty, or this person's smarter, or this person's got more money. And so, you know, it's kind of that limiting belief that, oh, well, I'll never be as good or whatever, versus kind of what you were saying with this, you know, swimming or sports analogy of being able to look at it and go, okay, how can I be more like this person in this way, right? How can I do it? Now, it's not how do I become this person, but how can I be more like this person? Wow, that person's really good speaker, and I would like to be a better speaker. So what can I learn from them that you're using in a constructive way? And then on the flip side of the slippery slope is when people go and they start looking down on people, and they're like, oh, but I'm so much better than other people, and you know, look at that person. Oh, you know, they don't have what I have, and all of that. It can kind of give you a false sense of ego, which can cause problems also. And some people will go, but I never want to be as poor as that, and they'll use that as motivation. So you kind of compare yourself and go, that's not what I want, so I'm going to move away from that, versus saying that I'm better than somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. It can go the other way too, where you look like, oh, that person's a great speaker and I'll never be that good because I'm such a loser and good things don't happen for me, and all these identity and belief things come up if you got that going on. So these are all good breadcrumbs to notice about where your growth edge inside yourself is. Are you comparing yourself to other people in a useful way or in a not so useful way?
Right.
And you know, the saying is the grass is always greener, right? And the grass is always greener, but what you need to understand about that idea is
spray paint it. It's fake grass.
A lot of people do spray paint their grass. A lot of people want you to see them as amazing, and it's spray paint. You know, you gotta be able to ferret those people out. Yeah. And it's not just con artists; it's some of the most famous and most recognized people on the planet. I'm not going to name any names, but being human's weird. I'll put it that way. But when the grass is always greener, you have to understand that that green grass somewhere else is a projection from inside of you. You don't truly know what it's like to be someone else. You don't truly know what their life is like. You don't know what their internal experience is like. You're projecting that their grass is greener than yours. So just knowing that that's like problematic fundamentally, it's fundamentally flawed, is important. And then of course the other saying is grass is always greener. Well, the grass is greener where you water it. Your grass will be greener when you start watering it correctly. Right. And that's, I think that's the most important thing. Yeah. It's good. I don't know if I've heard that one before. Simple metaphor.
Yeah. It's a great metaphor.
Yeah.
Unfortunately in California we don't have water. So then what do you do?
Yes. I don't know. You get fined for watering your grass. That's what you do.
that's what happens. Yes.
Yeah, actually, I think you do spray. Sometimes spray painting it's okay, and when it's drought in California, you can spray paint your lawn. That's acceptable.
There you go. Yeah. And then number 10, eliminate the unnecessary and cultivate the essential. Dun, dun,
Mm-hmm.
dun. And I think for me, this is
Ooh,
really
deep.
just about being focused, right? What do you,
Mm-hmm.
what signals? I was talking to a friend today, and it's just, I feel like their brain is just so cluttered with so much stuff that's coming in
Mm-hmm.
that it's really hard for them to focus on what it is that they want. So
Yeah,
there are times in our
and that's a
lives,
lot of us.
yeah, and it could be now where, the first step I think is really, figuring out what's kind of the essentials. If you had to really strip everything back a little bit and get rid of some of this noise that's out there, um, what what would that look like? And what would having that do for you? And within that, what is it that you would like? Because it's really hard to figure
Yeah.
out what you want if you've got all this noise and all this crap going on
Mm-hmm.
around you and in your mind.
Yep. And don't think positively, think clearly. I guess that
Yeah.
would be the starting place of this. And then when you're thinking clearly, what are the things that really matter truly in your life?
Right.
I'm talking about big identity things, your health, your wealth, your relationships, your romantic relationships, your family, like what ain't filling anything else you want to do. I really like the way Mark Manson puts it in The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. He call it, like, you have to give less fucks. He's like, you have to truly, miserable people give a fuck about way too many things.
Right.
You have to figure out what you truly give a fuck about and only focus on those things.
Yep.
And I think that's
Yep.
kind of what this is pointing to.
Yeah.
And I actually
totally.
really like that book. For a book with a very clickbaity title, it's a very it's a there's a lot of substance in that book. So I would recommend reading it.
Yeah.
To speak to this last point, if you really want to
Okay.
sort that out.
Yeah. And I think it's one of the interesting things that we have to learn how to deal with. Back when I was growing up, if I wanted to learn something, we had was it Britannica? Gosh, I forget
Encyclopedia Britannica.
The Encyclopedia of
Yeah.
Britannica. Thank you.
They had that too. Yeah.
And I remember we were missing one book. I forget which alphabet it was, because the encyclopedias are so big that you had multiple books. And I remember having one, and if it fell in that one book that was missing, it's like, you're screwed. It's like, how am I going to figure anything out without it? And actually,
before the internet.
Yeah, but it was great because you had to that quest for knowledge had to hit a certain threshold of, is it worth it? If it wasn't worth it, then forget about it. I'm not going to go and grab the internet, or I'm not going to call up grandma and grandpa, which, if they live far away, now you're talking about long distance charges with AT&T, which is super expensive. So, you weren't able to connect and get the information. And I think part of the problem with having the information is now we're just dealing with information overload. And that leads to overwhelm, and overwhelm just leads to just the mind shutting down. And so
you can only consciously focus on so much in the world, and you can only get so many things done over big goals over time that take consistent attention and effort, that you have to really figure out what's clear and what you have to ditch. And I think one of them they point to in this article already is you have to ditch caring what other people think, or become more referenced inside yourself.
Yep.
And with the caveat that some people's opinions are really, really, really informed and really important and can be really useful to you. But your projections about other people's lives, you want to get rid of that one for sure.
Yeah. So I just wrote down, because I liked what you were saying earlier with think clearly. And then with this, with number 10 here, it's eliminate the unnecessary and cultivate the essentials. So, think clearly and cultivate the essentials. To me, there's a program or a class in there somewhere.
I would agree. what could be more important?
Yeah.
It's almost like they should teach you this in school or something.
Totally agree. I don't know. I had this conversation with so many people. I'm like, why are we not teaching mental health in elementary? You know?
Some places are starting. It sounds like doing some mindfulness teaching is starting to creep its way in.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know where, but maybe
So
it's teacher specific or curriculum, but it's going to have a really cool effect over time.
Yeah, I would imagine the Montessori schools and different private schools, I'm sure, are incorporating it because it's just so powerful. Yeah. So.
Yeah, well, that's part of what I actually grew up. I was a Montessori kid for my early part of my life, and you get to do a lot of self-directed education. And I think that speaks a bit to this point in number 10, where you get to, I mean, you're a kid and you don't have, being a kid's weird. We were all kids once, if you're listening to this. And being a kid's weird because you have the full power of your mind inside your head. Kids are incredibly smart and perceptive. Yes. They just don't have access to all of it consciously. But the whole mind is there. You just can't operate it effectively till you hit 25 or 35.
Right.
You know, depending on your gender and like some other stuff. But like kids are incredibly smart. So you can kind of think, like I studied sharks every year. You had to do a study, but you could choose what the study was on. That was the self-directed part of it. So follow your curiosity, and sharks was it. And it was super fun.
Very cool.
And I forget where I was going with that, but as you extrapolate that into being an adult, and maybe you have your own business or an entrepreneurial endeavor, or maybe you're an employee and hopefully you're doing a job that you love with people who are good and a boss who cares about you, if that's the case. But you really have to be focused on what you want in your life. You just have to be so clear about what you want your life to be like, and like how it's going to be, and have that positive future expectation. And you have to cut out all the shit and just get to it. It's great advice. And if you know, again, we talked about the hyperbolic nature of the title of this article, what did it change your life instantly or something like that. But if you start to do this right now, and just even take out a piece of paper or a notepad on your phone and just like write down what's most important to you, and look at that every day and do a little thing about that every single day, you will change your life instantly.
Yeah.
It's not that hyperbolic. It will take some effort though. That's kind of the thing. We have to care about things enough to suffer for them. Right? Because consistency is a form of suffering, in my opinion. Nothing's harder than being consistent. But that's how stuff gets done most of the time. And it has to matter enough for you to go through that experience.
Right. Some people would call that the why. If you know your why, you'll be able to power through the experience so that you can achieve what it is that you want.
If that frame works for you and empowers you, go for it. Whatever gets you over the line, and kind of live in this way. Forward. Yeah,
for sure. All righty, sir. I think that's it for today's show.
I think so.
We actually got through all 10. Congratulations. I feel good about that.
Look at us. Setting goals and achieving them.
We can do it. We can do it, I tell you. Yeah.
Immediately change your life for the better.
For the better.
Mission accomplished.
If not, come back next Tuesday, 5:10 Pacific Standard Time, or did I say 10:15? I said 5:10.
You said 5:10, 10:15 Pacific.
Where did 5:10 come from? Wow, I really flipped those numbers around. 10:15 in the morning Pacific Standard Time. We will be live again. Would love to answer any questions, comments, thoughts, feelings that you have about Will, not myself, but Will, or the show and what we talked about. That would be great.
Fair enough.
Anything else,
cool.
Sir?
Nothing for me. Thank you, Ryan.
All right. Thank you.
Until we meet again.
All right. Until next week.